don't have paper charts, what we need to be able to do is be able to use the electronic charts just as well as to steer. This is the biggest change in the whole, you know, when you do get on your practical course, the instructor will likely talk about this, but you'll at least have a bit of an, you see it happening on the chart plotter automatically. You know what the chart plotter is doing, plot the tidal curves for every day of the year for us. And we're not teaching two different methods, we're teaching good navigation, and good navigation utilises all the tools available. Tonight's session is the end of paper charts and hashtag digital first. And I did quite a sort of extensive dive into this end of paper charts topic sort of 18 months ago when it was all quite fresh. And what I strongly recommend, I asked Charlie Triggs to put on the invites a link to that because it's good to have seen that first, if I'm honest, but if you've not, it's good to watch it after. I'm not going to recover the same stuff as that talk. I'm going to try and stick to what's new since then, and also try and explain how the RYA syllabuses and scheme is changing slightly in the upcoming future, just to try and keep everyone in the loop. And of course, how it affects all of us. So try and apply it to say exactly what that means. So yeah, there's a link there. You find it on our YouTube channel, the end of paper charts. I recommend going back and watching that. Stuff I'm talking about, a lot of it is, I speak with the RYA, and we occasionally get to talk to people from the MCA or UKHO, rarely, but occasionally. And this is kind of sharing stuff that I've heard. It's possible that I might say something that I wasn't supposed to share with everyone, but hopefully I've not crossed that line. I don't think I have. But yeah, it's just nice to keep you guys in the loop, I think, because I know rumours are getting around what's happening. So just to summarise what I did, what I discussed 18 months ago on that YouTube video, essentially the UKHO came out in 2022 and said, we're not printing any more paper charts as of 2026. It was a big shock, real big shock. And they quickly, after they got a bit of a backlash from everyone, said, okay, we'll make it 2030 because we realise now 2026 is a bit short. But also I said at that point, NOAA, the American version of the UKHO, they said they'd been phasing out, sunsetting is the word, their raster charts a long time ago. They started talking about that over a decade ago, and they were already in that process of phasing out raster charts. IMRI, they stood up and said they publish charts, paper charts, strictly for, well, not strictly for, but aimed at yachtsmen, talented yachtsmen. And I actually love their charts. And they were saying at the time they will continue to make paper charts even if other people stop, to provide us with, you know, paper charts for on yachts. And what all this did is it sparked a new discussion with the IMO, the MCA, and all the big authorities around the world about they needed to bring in new standards for officially recognised electronic charts for yachts. And that conversation started, and it had started then, and that's about it. That's as far as we've got. So at the moment, if you get Navionics or Savvy Navi out, every time you turn it on, or just your Raymarine chart plotter, turn it on and it will say, first thing, this is not to be used for navigation. And the idea is that is not legally, officially recognised. We need to find a way to make it recognised if they're going to take away the paper charts, because otherwise we'll be left with nothing. And yeah, the RYA at the time, they'd informed us changes were coming for that as all. They said changes in the emphasis in the syllabus were coming. So that's what the last video was in a nutshell, although I managed to drag that out for about 45 minutes with lots of extra info. So a quick recap on why this is happening. They will tell you all sorts of nice stories about how electronic charts are just better. But actually, the reason is these chartlets here, I won't go into detail, but they show that the demand for paper charts is going down and down and down and down. And it's not just big ships, it's us yachtsmen too. So the top one is all paper versus digital sales, blue paper, green digital. Green is growing, blue is shrinking. The bottom one is the demand for leisure folios, charts that the Admiralty published specifically for yachts, and you can see that is plummeting as well. So we're not buying them, so they're not going to make them. Yeah. But the UKHO announcement over this was the real catalyst to speed up the change. And that's because the UKHO provides charts for about 90% of all vessels around the world. So obviously that's huge. If they change, that changes it for pretty much everyone. There wasn't such a big uproar about it when NOAA said they were stopping, because realistically they don't supply as many vessels. So what's new since all that? I gotta be honest, not a whole lot. There's a reason it's been 18 months since I did the last update on this. Last time I said, oh, I'll update you as soon as I get more news, 6 months, 12 months. It's 18 months, and it's like, well, I better do something. But basically, the UKHO have now revised that 2030 deadline again. They didn't make a big song and dance about it. They just subtly changed their words to say to remove any deadline. So basically, no commitment. They said they'll supply them so long as there is a need for them. They don't outline what that need is. So, you know, it's hard to say if that means they'll really carry on as long as we need them, or will they carry on as long as fishermen need them, or, you know, it's, so we're a bit in unknown territory with that. IMRI have also done a U-turn. That was in November, just gone. They suddenly announced, after saying we're going to keep doing paper charts for yachtsmen, they said we're actually going to stop publishing printing paper charts at the end of 2025, which is this year, end of this year. So that's a massive change, very quick. NOAA, they have finished sunsetting their raster chart database. And I'm gonna quickly recap what raster charts and vector charts are in a sec for those that aren't 100% certain. But yeah, they've finished sunsetting that, so they no longer do raster charts as of the end of December just gone, so a couple of weeks ago. And the RYA have basically given us a few more details on the proposed changes to their scheme, to their courses. So things are not moving fast, and to be honest, the only one I can really give you lots of detail on, which is what was in bold earlier, is the RYA changes. Everything else is pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. The reason I've got sunsetted sort of highlighted there as well is it's a good word to describe how slow all this is. We're talking a high latitude summer sunset where it takes forever to go over the horizon. That's the way things are moving. It's not going to disappear like that. So we don't need to panic or worry about this. As I said, quick recap, raster versus vector. Raster, the first ever paper chart, electronic charts, they basically took the paper charts, scanned them in to a computer, and then the chart plotter just digitally put your position on that scanned in paper chart. And that is what a raster chart is. A vector chart was the sort of the next generation of electronic charts, where they took every little detail, every depth sounding, every navigation mark, and they gave it its own position, and they gave it all the sorts of extra details. And what that means is your chart plotter, whatever you're displaying these charts on, you can increase the detail, decrease it. As you zoom in, it'll bring up more details. As you zoom out, it will remove things so it's not too cluttered. And that is, you know, the ideal. And it's the raster database that everyone is stopping. Now, It's the raster database is what they used to print to make paper charts. If they get rid of the raster database, they're not going to print it and make paper charts. NOAA have said they're going to do print on demand for their vector charts. I think they're the only ones I know of that are doing that. And the reason no one does that is because there's all sorts of issues with vector charts. If you zoom out, a rock disappears, the water looks safe, you sail over it, you hit the rock. There's some rather famous cases of this happening where people have sailed into almost islands, if you like, because they zoomed out so far that the island disappeared. And I think NOAA's approach to this is you choose your area and your zoom level and your level of detail, and then it's your fault if you hit something that's not on your chart because you made it. I'm not certain. I think that's their approach. But as you can see, printing vector charts is not a good way to go, really. So that's why getting rid of the raster databases, which is what everyone's doing, is what is causing the end of paper charts. So moving on to, is there any questions relevant to that?
No, I've got one that I'll keep for a little later.
Cool. Just looking for a chance to have a sip on the drink.
Sorry.
So what is digital first? Hashtag digital first. I don't know if you guys have heard of this or not. It was the RYA is something, it's their sort of tagline for the changes coming that they've been sharing with their instructors. As far as I'm aware, they've not really been sharing it really widely, but I know some people have been asking me on the course have been, what about digital first? So the information is seeping out into the community. It's just the RYA slogan for the changes they are making. And the changes they are making are basically, it's just the emphasis in the teaching and the emphasis in the syllabus. I'm going to show you how the syllabus is changing the day skipper course in a minute, and you'll see it's very small. It's more the way they want us to give the information to you. And I think they're good changes, to be honest, and hopefully you'll all agree. We'll look at that in a minute. But most importantly, and this is something the RYA always say as well, and I very much agree, it is not digital only. It is not paper only. It's not digital only. Their slogan is hashtag digital first. And I'd actually go one further and say it's not even always digital first. It's what they're doing is embracing the electronics more to try and make sure everyone knows what they're doing with them more as paper charts are getting phased out. They're not cutting paper charts out yet. Cool. So this is, I went through and compared the RYA Day Skipper Theory syllabus as it currently is with whenever they sort of hit go on this, the new one that's coming in. And again, this is maybe one of those things I don't know if I'm supposed to be telling everyone about these, but I don't see any harm in it. I took the whole sort of 2 pages of syllabus, and the only changes I could really find were in these 2 subjects, chart work and navigation, and tides and tidal streams. And anything that on the left, sorry, no, anything that they've removed is striped out and in red here, and anything they've added is in green, and everything else in blue. So of those entire 2 pages, it's actually only a few words they've changed. And so let's quick look. They've crossed out traditional and electronic. It used to say chart work and navigation, traditional and electronic. Now it just says chart work and navigation. And the reason being, some people, when you say chart work, they think paper charts. It's not. An electronic chart is a chart. A paper chart is a chart. Chart work is when we are using those charts to navigate. And what they're doing with getting rid of traditional and electronic is they're trying to say, we're not teaching 2 different methods. We're teaching good navigation, and good navigation utilizes all the tools available. So take away that distinction. It is just navigation, not traditional, not electronic. Bed reckoning, estimated positions, leeway, that's all staying the same. Techniques of visual fixing, they've changed to lines of position and their relative accuracy. That is very similar. My interpretation of the reason they've changed those words is when we use chart plotters more freely, more openly, we don't always need to do like a 3-point fix. We might just get one line of position from a different source and use it to verify our position on the chart plotter. So it's more about getting different lines of position from different sources to confirm position fixing rather than to get the position fixing. Use of, and they've got rid of GNSS and chart plotters and said electronic navigation systems. And instead of position fixing, position monitoring. So the first bit, I mean, that's GNSS, chart plotters, electronic navigation system. That's all the same. It's basically no change. But just as I just said, we're more looking at taking bearings or ranges to confirm our position on the chart plotter as a sort of standard day skipper technique, instead of to plot a entirely independent fix on a paper chart and then maybe compare it to the chart plotter. So it's monitoring position rather than fixing position, because the chart plotter already fixes it. We just need to confirm it. Use of waypoints to fix position, that's crossed off, which was basically plotting a waypoint on the chart, an paper chart and electronic chart. The electronic chart tells us how far away it is, and then we use that to plot a position on the paper chart. That's kind of being shifted out because it's more from the old school readouts of just a lat and long rather than a chart plotter. Course to steer. This is the biggest change in the whole RYA scheme. They are taking course to steer out of day skipper, but they're not really taking it out. They're changing it to shaping a course. They're rewording it, and I'm going to explain exactly what that means in a second. What else we got here? I hope I'm not taking too long, and this is interesting, but I'll keep going. Tide tables, they've just added, and other sources of tidal height data. So again, they're just acknowledging that we're using more electronic means and other means, as well as our tide tables in our almanac. We're not getting rid of the paper tide tables in the almanac, we're just adding in as well. But you might also use an app on your phone. And when we teach that, we teach how to make sure that that information on the app on the phone is good data that we can trust, and how to use it well. And last but not least, use of tidal diamonds and tidal stream atlases for chart work, changes to sources of tidal stream data. Again, exactly the same as the last one. They're not getting rid of getting the tidal stream information from tidal diamonds or tidal stream atlas. They're just saying there are more ways than just that, and so it's just including a little bit more. But actually, the way we do that is we still have the training almanac, and we still teach the tide tables using that, but we also, the RYA have created a new online resource, RYA eNavigation, where they've got all the tide tables online in a format that is similar to as you would get from EasyTide, the Admiralty's app and website. And what that means is it will plot the tidal curves for every day of the year for us, and we can use that to get the height of tide, as well as the ways we already cover. The same with tidal streams. You can put in the date and the time, and it will give us all the tidal stream information without us having to get a book and a Portland plotter out. Those are really kind of simple and easy things to pick up. So the addition of those into the course is actually quite minimal in terms of time. It kind of means that once we've learned the paper way, which we still have to learn, then you don't have to do these steps for every single question later on. We can start using the easier method. Once you've shown you can do it the official way, then we can start using these as well. So it's kind of adding in, but also it's not really a big load of extra. So that is what will be available to everyone in the when they sort of make the shift. Like I say, it will all be used as well as the existing training almanac. And shaping a course. So this is what they're doing instead of course to steer. So we're still plotting EPs, but we're looking at how an electronic chart plotter. So for example, here you'll see it's Port Victoria. I've got a electronic copy of the RYA territories, and I've made these up, these images. But we'll talk about how at the end of that green vector, that is essentially our EP. If we set the time range for that vector in our settings, that is our EP. We've still put an EP on the paper chart as well, but that's our digital version. And then instead of plotting a course to steer, the new approach will be, well, what you can do is you can turn your boat until that green line that shows our course over ground points at our waypoint. It's not quite as good seamanship for ways that we'll explain in the new version of the course when we get that out. But it works, it's effective, and realistically, it's what we all do at day skipper level, at least. So it's kind of more in line with, we're going to teach how to do this well, the consequences of navigating like this, with the idea that when you go out and do it yourself, you're still doing what you're taught, basically. So we make sure you can do it well. So that's kind of the alternative to course to steer, which is obviously going to take a little chunk out of the course. Course to steer will still be in coastal skipper and Yachtmaster, I should add. So if you're doing it now, you're just one up on for your next course. Though it is in more detail, it's actually harder in coastal skipper. With these new standards coming for electronic charts, if we don't have paper charts, what we need to be able to do is be able to use the electronic charts just as well as we can use paper charts. So we still need to be able to plot our own position fix and our own tidal vectors and our own EPs on an electronic chart. And that is the big change. That's going to be the biggest change in how we use electronic charts, is we'll be able to use them without GNSS, without a satellite position, derived position. And if we lose GNSS signal, which, you know, GNSS jamming does go on a lot, especially there's a few sort of wars going on at the moment, and in those areas, a lot of the Baltic, a lot of the Eastern Med, there's GNSS jamming. We even get it on the west coast of Scotland a couple of times a year when the NATO come and play war games, do their exercises. And we'll need to be able to plot our own EPs, just as we do on paper now on our electronic charts. And that's kind of, you know, that's it between these two slides, what's changing in the RYA day skipper course. I'll touch on the other courses in a moment. The other thing is the shore-based notes book. We get questions about this sometimes. Currently, the RYA are only providing the old shore-based notes, day skipper shore-based notes book that matches the course. They're only providing it in ebook format. They do not print it anymore, but they still insist that we give the old version because it matches the syllabus. They have now released the new book and you can buy it in print, but they won't let us give it to you because it doesn't align perfectly with the exam that you sit at the end of your theory course, essentially, and the syllabus that you're currently studying. But, you know, if I'm honest, if people said, should I go out and buy the new version, I'd probably say no. Charlie said to me yesterday, she said, no, surely you'd just tell them to go get the Reed's Skipper's Handbook. And she's absolutely right.
I hope the RA are not watching this.
I'm sure they will, and I'm sure they'll pull us aside at the next conference. But
all I was saying was that the changes between the old book and the new book are probably very, very minor. So if it's a printed version that you're really after, and you've been given the ebook version, rather than buy a printed copy that's almost the same as the ebook version that you've already got, Another handy little alternative is the Reed Skipper's Handbook, which is a really dinky little book, but it's also, there we go, Tim's got one.
Oh yeah.
It's also surprisingly comprehensive. It's just a really nice little notebook and genuinely very handy.
It's somehow, it's like that size, but it feels like it should be that size because the amount of information in it.
It's super good. If you're looking for something to fill that spot of going in the lid of your kit bag to take with you on your practical course, that little book just fills that spot perfectly.
So yeah, the changes between the old version and the new one, they're pretty small. Like we've looked at, the syllabus isn't changing much. Now we've got ourselves in trouble, we'll move on. So what about the other RYA theory syllabuses? Because I know we've got some people on the day skipper here, but we've got some people on the Yachtmaster. Well, the others, there is no change yet. I mean, there's no change to the day skipper yet, but they are working on the changes. As far as I'm aware, they're not even working on the changes to these other courses. One thing at a time, you know. And of the other 3 theory courses that would be affected by this, the essential nav and seamanship is probably most likely to have some changes introduced, but the Yachtmaster and Yachtmaster Ocean, they are going to take a long time to change because they are so embedded in NCA regulations with their use commercially all around the world. So the more authorities that you involve, and the MCA will have to answer to the IMO, yeah, the longer these changes are going to take. I got to admit, I'm not sure why the day skipper would be quicker, because that is also really widely recognised around the world and can be used commercially. But that's what the RYA say, is the Yachtmaster will take a lot longer. It'll be a lot slower to change than the day skipper is. And the day skipper's so far taken 2 years, and it's not there yet. So we've got there's plenty of time. Nothing's happening fast. You're all getting a lot of advance warning. But we will expect more sort of slow, steady changes, more in instructors' attitudes, probably, in the way they teach. And it's not necessarily always an instructor's attitude is changing. In some cases, the RYA is almost allowing us to teach differently, whereas before, you know, there was a syllabus and an exam that kind of kept us in line on a different approach. But now we are allowed to and have to make sure that everyone is a lot more widely skilled, so they're ready for when paper charts do disappear. Which before it was like, is this the end of the paper charts? I was like, nah, it's not really. But actually now, with INRAE pulling out, it kind of is.
Well, the hydrographic office is still printing charts as long as they're needed, i.e. until the new standards are met.
Yeah, it's a long way off. Yeah. But once they go, they'll probably be our last option in the UK. So yes, and the last point here, more differentiation between day skipper and Yachtmaster. This is a nice thing. We think it's really nice. Currently, the day skipper and the Yachtmaster syllabus, they kind of look identical. We just go into a lot more detail on the Yachtmaster. This will actually create an extra sort of step between them, which is nice, because on the day skipper it allows us to focus more on the depth of knowledge and understanding on the things that are really important. And the Yachtmaster, you'll be getting like course to steer for the first time, which I think will be just nicer for people to be getting those sort of extra things. There is still a lot more in the Yachtmaster, but when you look at the syllabus, it doesn't look like it, but it will feel more like it in the future. Practical courses. Obviously, we don't run practical courses, but I am a practical instructor, Stu's an examiner, and we do obviously keep in touch with these as well. Basically, practical instructors for the last year already are being encouraged to adopt these new emphases on using electronics. And you know, now it's pretty hard line. You will not pass a Yachtmaster unless you can prove that you can use paper charts and a chart plotter. if you don't use your chart plotter enough, you'll fail. So they have been encouraged to adopt this, but the theory exams have not changed, and neither is the practical syllabus. So we still have to do the paper. Paper is not gone yet. It's still legally it is the only thing we can use. Like, we have to use it, consult our paper charts when navigating, and particularly passive planning. So that is not out. I've heard some reports, you know, people saying, well, they went on their practical and they were told, oh, everything's changed and you don't need paper charts anymore. Well, that's not true. They've got the wrong end of the stick there. That's not what it should be taught like. You will be taught to use all available equipment. Like I said, you've got to use everything, chart plotters and paper charts. At the moment, you know, we're riding out with the last ones through on the old day skipper syllabus. We're going to be over prepared. We're going to have even more knowledge than the new syllabus. So it's not a bad thing. And I sort of I've anticipated here some people thinking, well, I don't need to do the course of steer at day skipper then. You still do. It still is the syllabus. It still is in the exam, and you can't pass the exam if you just refuse to do a course to steer. Like I say, it's a ticket that you can use around the world and commercially, and so you have to meet the standards as they currently are, not as they're going to be in 5 years' time. As far as teaching the electronics, we already kind of teach the extent of what we can anyway, because we can't teach you how to use every piece of equipment that you're going to find on a boat. Every Raymarine, Simrad, Faruna is different, so the theory that you gain behind it all is what's really important. And then the practical, that is where the instructor can sit down with you with a particular model and go through the actual pressing of the buttons. And that's the way it's always going to be. You're not going to get a chart plotter simulator in a couple of years' time. The RYA, they've tried that twice already, and it's been an utter failure both times. And they said they're never doing that again. And I believe them. So
that kind of answers Richard's question. His question was, so if they do without paper charts, does this mean that the theory part of the chart work is going to be done by a computer program? I think that was where his question was aimed.
Oh, like, yeah.
Will there be a chart plotter program that gets dished out with this kind of new digital first update? And yeah, like Ed said, the RYA have tried and, you know, put a lot of investment into making an RYA chart plotter, which was kind of generic, kind of a blend of popular chart plotting software and hardware looks, you know, with different buttons, and found that the instructors were spending a lot of time teaching students how to navigate around the menus to find the certain settings, and that was taking up a lot of time out of the course, when actually it was just the processes and the fundamentals that you wanted the students to take away. But teaching the button pressing was taking up a lot of time. So the approach that they came up with was the electronic resources booklets, which has the screenshots of a generic chart plotter instead, and by using those screenshots to encourage discussion about electronic charts. But realistically, what you really need to do is, when you finish your theory course, download an app on your phone or tablet, get familiar with it, and ideally take it with you on your practical course, so that you've always, it's a good idea to take it with you on your practical course. There should be a device on board that has electronic charts available, but it's even better if you've got your own personal one that you already know how to use.
And you'll know in the future, so you can ask the questions of the practical instructor and then take that on your charter holiday. And even if their new chart plotter on the charter boat is more fancy, you've also got one that you've been taught how to use.
Yeah, so and by the time you've learned one or two different systems, then you start to recognize the patterns. You know what you're looking for, and you know what menu it's likely to be buried in. So yeah. No RYA chart plotter on the horizon has actually kind of been and gone already.
Yeah, I probably. I mean, I was just repeating exactly what the RYA said to us. They will never have a chart plotter again. They might do, but if they do, I really don't think that's going to happen until paper charts are fully out the door. Until then, they'll continue teaching or requiring people to be taught with the paper charts. It's easier. Well, it's required because that's legally what we've got to use, and we need to know how to use them. But also, if I'm perfectly honest, it does create a deeper level of understanding to manually do this. And then when you see it happening on the chart plotter automatically, you know what the chart plotter is doing for you. And so it does create, I think, better seamanship, because you look at the electronics and you know exactly what's going on, rather than taking it all at face value and relying on it.
So I'll skip to Mike's question, which is, will there need to be improved standardization between chart plotter interfaces to enable people to easily use an unfamiliar plotter?
Yeah, so I do touch on this in the YouTube video from the last one I did on this 18 months ago. There's a lot of talk about S mode, is what's being sort of coined as, where to be officially recognized, these new chart plotters are going to have to meet certain standards. And one way of implementing that is likely to have a standardized mode, an S mode, where no matter which chart plotter you get to, you press this one S mode button and it reverts to the same colors, the same, like all the same interface on every single chart plotter. It will turn off community edits, it will turn off auto routing, and it will keep it to a standardized mode with the core tools, so that once you've been trained to use that S mode, you can get on any boat and comfortably use the equipment. So it's a lot harder to implement that than you first think, because I mean, well, most things are touch screen these days, but every device has different size screens, different buttons in different places. So it will take them a long time to make that work. And obviously we're talking international regulations, which just takes so long for people to discuss and
the main delay, isn't it? It's the admin, the paperwork.
Quite, I think it's funny anyway, quite interestingly, after the UKHO made this announcement a few years ago, the IMO said, right, we need to set up a new body, and the UKHO are heading the new I don't know what to call it, group to work on this new S mode, on these new standards for yachtsmen for leisure electronic charts. And it almost feels like the rest of the international community might have turned around and said, you caused this problem, you're coming up with the answer, and put the UKHO in charge of it. I don't know, I'm making that up, but I think that's possibly what's happened. So what is changing today? You know, I'm giving you this information, but actually nothing has changed after you've seen this to what you knew before, except your understanding of what to expect in the future. And so when when you do get on your practical course, the instructor will likely talk about this, but you'll at least have a bit of an understanding already, and you can have a more informed discussion with them and ask more appropriate questions when the time comes. So when this, well, I say the time comes, I'm talking about digital first here. We're not talking about the Olympic charts. That's a long way off. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with that. It's all talk and theoretical at the moment. But with digital first, so the change to the day skipper syllabus and any future syllabuses, I'm going to do my best to keep you up to date all the way along. When the RYA released the new exam paper and the new syllabus, then we've already preemptively written any changes that are required into the course, and it's ready to go. And as soon as we are allowed to hit go on that, we'll give everyone who's already on the course access to both the updated version and the existing syllabus version. We'll highlight any new areas, any changes in that course, so you can just log into the new one and just go straight to the good bits. And when you get to your exam, it'll be up to you if you want to take the existing exam or the new exam. We'll let you make that decision, and we'll run more of these sessions, really going into details on each of the changes. We just want to make sure that, you know, you guys are getting the best of both the old and the new, if you like, and you get as much as you can. So, I mean, I hope that we've got another conference, RYA conference in February.
We do.
Yeah, I hope that at that we're going to get a new sort of timeline on when this stuff might happen, and maybe some news on how other courses might change as well. To be honest, it is a big challenge for the RYA as well, and they've given us lots of timelines in the past, and they've always been extended. So so yeah, I can't say when it's going to happen, but when it does, I'm going to make sure anyone on our courses is the best prepared out of anyone. You'll know more than some of the instructors, I hope, that will do it that well. Speaking of my hopes. So yeah, like I say, more updates revealed at the RA conference. We are off to Boot Dusseldorf in a couple of days, and it's possible we might bump into UKHO, MCA, that kind of person there, and we might be able to, you know, buy them a beer and squeeze a little info. But we'll definitely get something at the RYA conference in February. I hope that the new emphasis allows us to really take away a bit of the manual time spent manually doing graphical calculations at day skipper level, and focus on what I think is more important, is the foundational knowledge, the fundamental understanding of how things are working, how things are affecting you. So, you know, I hope these changes allow us to actually make an even better course and send you away feeling like you know more, even though in a way we're kind of taking, you know, one or two things out. I also hope that we've got some awesome new chart plotters on the way, which will allow us to use without GNSS, without GPS signals. We can plot our own tidal vectors. We can plot lots of bearing lines and ranges and use them to make fixes. That we should be getting an upgrade to what's available to us. If I'm honest, you know, Navionics hasn't really changed much since the last 10 years. Savvy Navi's new, but it's not groundbreakingly different. I do like they are trying to be new, but this is going to force them to put some new stuff on. Yeah, I mean, this is a dream. This is a fantasy of mine, is that we will get someone will say, okay, paper's still good for some things. I personally, I've got my fear at the bottom, I should probably start with. If we take away paper, the caveat on big ships is that they have to have an ECDIS with electronic chart display information system. They have to have two of them, and they have to have independent power sources. So if one power source fails, you know, they've got a backup. I don't really want to have to install a second battery bank and two chart plotting systems on our boat. But hopefully that won't be a requirement for us. But I'm also hoping that maybe someone else will take up the initiative and create some unofficial paper charts. You can get, in some parts of the world, you can only really get, the best charts are unofficial, and they'll be cheaper because they won't have to be meeting the same standards and checks as official ones.
Or getting the same licenses.
Or getting the same licenses, yeah. And we might be able to get some, you know, cheap paper charts still in the future, but there's none of that available right now. But there we go. That's kind of my hopes and fears.
I've got one or two bits to add on to this.
Yeah.
From the thing. So when you said awesome new chart plotters which allow use without GNSS, straight away we've had people popping in saying, "What about OpenCPN? What about eLORAN?"
Well, yeah. So it is all. I mean, OpenCPN is brilliant. The the way we have it on computers and tablets and things doesn't meet the standards. Even if we put official charts on really expensive charts that are, you know, used by commercial ships, it still won't meet the standards, because to be at the moment, like EXIS systems on big ships, they have to color match all the monitors so that every single one has exactly the same shade of blue, and you have to have independent training for every single different manufacturer of EXIS, which is a nightmare. It wouldn't work for yachts. So yes, OpenCPN does allow you to plot some of your stuff. It will only make OpenCPN more widely adopted, I'd have thought, and bring, like, there's a bit of an opportunity there, I guess, for them to do even better in the leisure world than they currently are. For those of you that don't know, it's an open source chart plotting software, and you can basically do anything with it because it's open source. People have made all these different add-ons to do everything and anything you'd ever want it to do, although it's not always the most polished outcome, as is often the way with open source software. But it's neat. Unfortunately, 99, I think actually, I'd go as far as to say 100% of the time I've seen it being used, it's been used with pirated charts, which are often about 20 years out of date, which is a shame. You can get official, you can get, not official, you can get up-to-date charts in there, but yeah. Hopefully, yeah, OpenCPN will become more of a thing, if anything. For me, it's really buggy on my tablet at the moment, so I don't use it.
We have used it.
We have used it, yeah.
Yeah.
Used it a lot in the Southern Ocean because
AngelNav,
yeah, that's great. But it uses raster charts, and all the raster chart databases are getting axed. So that AngelNav is definitely making strides in the right direction, but it's also made a stride in the wrong direction. I know Tom Cunliffe has strongly defended raster charts and said they're better. Unfortunately, all the international authorities disagree, so he needs to update that. Unless he already has, and I'm unaware. But in which case, sorry, Tom. Good work. If you don't want to hang around, for questions, like I've said, jump on our YouTube video, watch the other video if you want more information on how the paper charts are getting phased out and why. This one's been a bit more focused on the changes to the RYA syllabus. Well, thank you so much for coming and joining in. Lots of great questions. I hope it's been useful. Yeah, like I say, going forwards, you're going to be encountering more and more of this talk of all this going on. So it's nice that you'll be prepared for that at least. And I'll do my best to keep you all updated as we go. Cool. And if you think of any other questions when you're laying in bed tonight waiting to go to sleep, just drop an email or a live chat and we'll always happy to answer. I don't have all the answers. I've only got what I can steal away from people as I meet them, people in the know. Yeah, I don't exactly get updates from the UKHO directly, although I have got an ex-UKHO employee I'm hoping to get on for a live session soon. He's had COVID, he's had flu and a computer failure, but he has promised me he's still on for it. And I'll tell you what, he's got some brilliant stories, so I'm looking forward to that one.
See you later, everybody. Thank you.
See you.
Okay, Charlie, when the house bears about 270 degrees.
Information to work out our distance from the lighthouse and use that.
We might be perfectly on track, but if we're not on time...
Have a look, I've got my phone here at the effects it has on our steering compass.
So our echo sound is working, we can find a contour and follow it nicely into port.
Our left hand is pointing towards the centre of the low.